Chicagoland transit line is?
Age before beauty. I have a new one.
Oh.
It's the number 26 bus. Who's been on the 26? Very few people. It goes to the South Shore. It is so fast, but it only runs for a few minutes every day. So I'm one of the few people who, but I'm a super fan. Yes.
Why don't you introduce yourself in your role?
Oh, sorry. Eva-Dina, Executive Director of the Active Transportation Alliance.
Well, what do they do?
We are working to create a state that's abundant with walking, biking, and public transit to enhance our quality of life, our affordability, livability across our state.
I'm Eva-Dina Delgado. I am a state representative. I represent the northwest side of the city of Chicago, and that goes from Wicker Park, includes Wicker Park, Humboldt Park, Logan Square, Hermosa, Belmont Craig, and Montclair, and I go all the way to the border of the city. It looks like a lightning bolt. I've been serving since 2019, and my number one most important project right now is trying to save Chicagoland transit. In addition to that, save some transit across the state, because we're actually seeing the same issues that we're seeing here, but we're also seeing it in other metropolitan areas across the state. My favorite line has not changed since the last time I saw you all. The Western Avenue bus. Woo! My favorite transit line in the city. The reason I love it so much is because it traverses the entirety of the city. So if you ride it all the way across town, Western Avenue, I think, is the longest continuous street in the city of Chicago. So you will see every walk of life all the way across the city. And it is a really cool ride if you ever have an entire day to take it.
Amazing. So I want to start with a question for Representative Delgado. Walk us through what happened in Springfield this spring, and why funding didn't pass.
So we spent, I'm going to back up a little bit, actually. So we started talking about the transit fiscal cliff about almost 5 years ago. So we knew back then that we were going to be in a situation where the federal funding was going to run out, the COVID support, COVID relief money. And so we knew we were going to have to do something about it long term. And we wanted to do it in a way that was actually methodical and thoughtful and planned, which is not usually how legislation happens in the state of Illinois, but that's what we wanted to do. So we worked very closely with Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. We've got some CMAP folks in the house. And they spent hours and hours and hours and hours
16,000.
Putting together a plan, right? What would we do if we could, plan transit for the future? So we have this beautiful plan endorsed by a number of different folks saying this is really what we want to do. So we got that plan at the end of last session, which was in May of 2024. So we spent time working, when I say we, myself and Senator Ron Villavolum, who was the sponsor in the Senate. And we spent time putting together a bill, we drafted it, worked very closely with MPC, with Active Transportation Alliance, a number of other folks that are very involved in this transit issue. And so we introduced it at the end of the 2024 session. We reintroduced it at the beginning of this spring session, and spent most of the session negotiating a lot of the reform pieces to the bill. As we got towards the end of session, there was kind of a mad dash to figure out how do we fund it. The revenue piece kind of sat and waited until the last couple of weeks. And so as we were trying to put together those pieces, the clock just kept ticking. And then the Senate decided to vote on a transit bill at, I think it was 11:41, the last night of session. And so for those of you who don't spend a lot of time in Springfield, it actually takes physical time to get a bill from one chamber across the dome to the other chamber. And so by the time it got to us, we just didn't have enough time to take it up. And so we literally ran out of time. There was a time in Illinois where they would stop the clocks, but we can't do that anymore. Too many people are watching. So we ran out of time, but what has happened since then is we've taken that legislation that passed the Senate, and we've spent a lot of time this summer talking about what do we need to do to get it to the finish line. The House took exactly 2 weeks off and then started working again through the Public Transit Working Group. Shout out to my staff. Hi. Big round of applause to my staff. They have also been working nonstop since we took those 2 weeks off in June. So very excited and optimistic that October is our time, and we will make sure to get it done.
All right, so we'll start with Amy, for both of you. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you hear around funding transit that are like an obstacle to getting it done?
I think you guys have laid that out very well today. There was a headline 2 weeks ago talking about the tri-state construction work that's happening on 22 miles of roadway. It's over $4 billion being spent for 22 miles of roadway that moves 300,000 cars a day. Contrast that with transit in the region, which is moving well over a million people a day. And we are fighting for scraps to get to $1.5 billion a year. So I think there's just a really big imbalance in our transportation priorities and how we envision the strength and future of our region relative to who gets prioritized.
Wow, that's just like not efficient.
Yeah, nobody asks how much a mile of roadway costs. I think you'd be shocked to know what that number is.
You know what I mean?
I don't, but it's shocking. Biggest misconception, that the only people that benefit from a functional transit system are the people who use transit. That is not true.
Not true.
So I'm gonna date myself here. I worked on the legislation that we passed in 2008 around transit. And one of the things that we used to say to tell people how serious this issue was is we would say, without funding transit, we're gonna have Carmageddon. There's gonna be so much congestion on the streets, and we can't live like that. Well, guess what, folks? We're living in it. This is the Carmageddon that we used to threaten back in 2008, where there's just constantly congestion. Everywhere you go, all times of the day, it doesn't matter where you are. Even if you're not driving, if you're on a bike and you're experiencing the congestion, it can be a little dangerous, right? So the idea that a functional transit system only helps the people who ride transit is just a fallacy, because the more people that take the bus and the train means that those people are not in their cars. And that means that those folks who depend on driving their car, think, a guy who does construction work and needs trucks, needs their truck and needs their materials and things like that, they can't necessarily take that on a bus or a train. They can move more freely throughout the region. And so an investment in transit really is an investment for everybody who has to live, work, play in this region.
I've also heard people aren't riding transit as much as they used to. Is that true?
So if you were to talk to the transit agencies, they'll tell you that the ridership is back. The only thing that's changed is how people are riding. So instead of riding 5 days a week during rush hours, peak rush hours, people are riding 3 days a week, and maybe they're coming in late and they're leaving late. Metra is also seeing their ridership back, but again, people are not riding a typical 9 to 5 schedule, sometimes they're using it on the weekends. So, I mean, people are back, they're just back in a different way. And one of the things that we've thought about in terms of reform and trying to make a system for the future is making it possible for those transit agencies to be a little bit more nimble, to be able to be responsive to what people want to see, right? Instead of a train running, 4 times in an hour in the peak morning rush hours, maybe you have a train every 45 minutes running back and forth, right? And so that gives people options to be able to travel more without having to necessarily have their timetable in their pocket, and have to time everything around that. So that's what we would like to see.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit more about the reforms, like what we could expect to see if we pass the reforms and the funding, what that would look like?
Jump in.
A more unified fare structure, simpler ways to pay and understand the fares, more coordinated schedules. What we're trying to do is build a more regional system. I have taken 4 different train lines, 2 different metros, 3 PACE buses, and a lot of CTA buses in the last 2 weeks by virtue of my life. And I still get irritated and frustrated with paying multiple times sometimes, paying too much, and things not being connected. So getting the system to be more connected and rider-centered is really, really important. Another really important thing is making it more accessible on many layers of accessibility that will open up the system to more riders, and also make the system more transparent. Having clearer expectations, more upfront expectations on behalf of the agencies and the boards that are governing the system, and more access points for the public to weigh in. I could keep going. You can throw a few.
When I like to think about this as making it seamless for the rider. So if you're writing the system, you don't want to have to think too much about how to get from point A to point B, because then it may not be your first choice, right? I mean, when we first started this, Amy, you remember when I used to say, I have a dream that someday people will walk out of their home and choose transit first instead of getting into their car, right? I think one way that you help drive that is by making it easy for people to use. And so if you have to think about what fare card do I have, and what time is the bus going to show up, and is it going to connect to the train, and all those things, that really makes it hard. So, one system, one timetable, one ticket, like that just, it seems so obvious, but the way that our system has been built, it just doesn't work that way. So we have to force folks to work together.
We also included a lot in the legislation to bring the state Department of Transportation to the table. They aren't involved in transit in our region, but they're the roadway. And they actually have a lot of the space around the stations. And so in the future of our transportation needs to include bus rapid transit, speeding up buses, bus having priority, because I literally ran to catch the 49X so that I could have a faster ride to the Blue Line the other day than just take the 49 because it's stopping at every stop. And so people work busy lives, and so just speed things up a little, give transit a priority. I rode bus rapid transit in Boston, and I was creeping out the other riders, asking them what'd you think of this? What's your experience been? How was it before? How was it after? This one man said to me, I have to tell you, the first time I rode it, I felt like for the first time in my life I was important. It was amazing to be on the bus going faster than the cars. And for a transit rider to feel like you mattered in the ecosystem of our city is really important. So that's what we're trying to do.
You mean on transit? I mean,
Yeah, on the bus.
About that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's Boston. They've already figured out their fiscal cliff.
So that's what we gotta beat. Got it. All right, well, that's all what could go well. What happens if we don't pass one?
So, I don't even like to think about that. The CTA is talking about a 40% service cut. That would make the Chicago Transit Authority a smaller system than the one that's in Kansas City? It would be very, very bad. It would be very, very bad. For those, I don't know how many suburban folks are in the room today, but for those folks that live out in the suburbs, I mean, the amount of transit service that they currently have right now is, it's not great. I mean, I think if you were to ask anybody who lives out in the burbs, they would say, yeah, it's not great, but at least we've got something. If you were to cut that service, it would just be decimated out there. And once you cut transit service, it's very difficult to get it back. So I'm gonna go back in the Wayback Machine again, 2008. When that legislation was passed, there was one particular revenue source that did not live up to the expectation. And because of that, the CTA had to make some pretty significant cuts in 2010. The cuts that resulted in 2010 have not come back. And we're now in 2025, right? The 49X is one of the few that has come back.
And Ogden, I think, is finally back.
Yeah.
So we don't even know how good it could be.
Yeah.
Correct.
There's more out there for us.
Yes. Yeah. So bad. Let's not do that.
Fair enough. Okay, so how can like normal people get involved to help pass this or whatever?
There's some cards around you with QR codes to weigh in with your elected officials. But I have a limerick on this one.
I've been waiting.
I have limericks. I run a limerick society, so I don't get a chance to use them very often. You might have to close your ears. Safe Transit's the call of the day. Fix it, fund it, no transit doom day. Our mobility depends on tying up loose ends, a House, Senate, and Governor three-way. Our leaders need to hear from you all about how much this matters. The financial toll of losing transit's far greater than these tiny fees that might be added to things. The cost on all of us, I think the cost to operate a car monthly is like 20 to 30 times the cost of a CTA monthly pass. So the financial ramifications for average folks like us are tremendous. So let people know that you care.
Yes. I would also suggest, if you don't know who your state rep and senator are, you should find out. You could just Google it.
Or
It
if
comes
you go
up.
to the QR code, you type in your address, and it tells you who they are.
Even easier. So I would start there. If you have any friends or family that live outside of Chicago, that would be super helpful. I find that Chicago members are absolutely 100% on board with finding a way to solve this problem, mostly because we're the ones that get calls from our constituents saying, hey, this is important. I'm a transit rider. I mean, I depend on it, maybe not as much as I used to, as a result of my job, but we know that because we hear it from you all the time, those of you who live in the city. But if you have friends, family that live out in the burbs, if they care at all about you, tell them to call their state rep and state senator and tell people how important it is.
And this isn't a Chicago-only issue, is it?
No, so again, so this transit cliff thing is not just happening here. It's happening across the country. The only difference is that we found a way to make our dollars stretch farther, and thus we haven't had the fiscal cliff hit yet. And if there's anything I can tell you about the state legislature, we don't do anything unless we absolutely have to. And so having that deadline really makes a difference. So that's why I feel like October is looking real good. I believe that that's going to happen. But getting some urgency and maybe some gentle nudges to members of the legislature that don't live in Chicago would be really helpful.
I would also say that transit agencies and staff are under a lot of stress through all this. So thank your operators. On your way home, thank your train driver, bus driver, because they are hanging in there. But I think CTA has 5,000-ish newish employees over the last couple of years. And we want them to stay. They've been trained and they're keeping things going. So keep morale up.
Okay. Well, on the subject of morale, like, is there hope? Do you think we're gonna pass this? And if we do, like, well, I guess we are. Do you think we can do this?
Will you host the party?
Yes.
I think we have to, right? The answer to that is we have to. I just can't foresee a future where the economic engine of the state of Illinois does not have a functional transit system. It's just not, I don't want to imagine that future. And so I believe that most folks understand that. I also, I'm really looking forward to not talking about transit after October. That will be really nice. But yeah, it's happening. It's happening in October, if I have anything to say about it, so.
All right. Well, give it up again for our guest. Well, we have a quick idea. We haven't done this before, but will you guys join in with us for something special? We're thinking we have a whole room of people who want to pass transit funding. Can we take a little video? We're going to ask, do you want to fund transit? And then we're going to pan, and you can say, yes! I mean, if you want. If you say no, that'd be weird. Okay. All right, so.
I'll say go.
I'm gonna stand here. Okay. Let's stand together.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
I'm gonna say, should we fund transit? And then you pan to the audience and you say yes. Okay, ready? Should we fund transit?
Yeah!